pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome to tonight's study session meeting. I'd ask for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
And first by Neil. Any seconds?
Second.
Kim, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose the same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, number 3, no action items. Number 4, study session, Dr. Funk, graduation, 2021.
Okay, so as we move forward into spring and we start to come more and more out of the COVID situation, the state has loosened up the rules on social distancing regarding graduation. So our recommendation tonight is as follows. As is typical, our ALC graduation will be on the Thursday of on May 20th this year at 6 p.m. in the Alberta High School auditorium. The auditorium has more than enough capacity for the graduates that will be graduating from the ALC. So that's our plan with that moving forward. High school graduation, we're going to ask for some flexibility with our community this year. We're planning on doing it at 7 p.m. on Friday the 21st per the calendar at Hammer Field. We plan on doing one ceremony. We cannot, because of the social distancing rules, we want to have 4 people per family able to attend. We will not be able to fit those 4 people into the gymnasium if we had to move it inside. So we're looking at a rain date on Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. We realize this may inconvenience some people, but we would rather do that than tell people they have tickets to attend, and then if we have to move it indoors, then they can't come. So that is the risk we will run by running it outdoors. Each family will have 4 tickets. Last year we were only allowed 2 tickets. We will be utilizing both sides of the stadium, and we plan on using electronic ticketing to help with families who last year a number of them forgot their ticket or didn't have it. And seniors' last day will be Wednesday the 19th. That Friday morning they will have their senior breakfast and do the rehearsal, and then we plan on graduating on Friday evening. Questions on any of that?
Does it?
Yeah, just really quick, for the 4 tickets per person, if more guidelines are lifted or, given more leeway to those, could that number be increased for families at a later date, or is this just what it's going to be?
Paul or Mark, what do you think on capacity of the stadium?
We probably could expand the capacity if we need to.
I think it depends how much time prior to the event. Planning time would be important too.
And ALC, do they also have 4 tickets?
Yeah, last year, even in the height of the pandemic, we didn't limit the ALC audience. So Johanna was talking about 25 graduates, 700 is the capacity in the auditorium, so we should be in pretty good shape there.
Is there a list kept usually, like if I'm only going to have 2 people come to mind that I can free up 2 tickets into for Aaron's family or something like that? For the graduation?
Since we're doing it electronically, that possibility could exist, yes.
And I know it's been brought up before, but what will be the standards to graduate to walk this year? Will they have to have all classes completed?
Yeah, we have not adjusted that. And Mark, with his teacher leadership within his building, has put a pretty robust plan of support in for the students that were short. families were contacted, opportunities were actually have been provided during the school day and after school to students. So we did not adjust the standards from what they have historically been.
And for the students that are a little further off, then would they be enrolling in ALC and have the opportunity next year or a following year? to
Yes,
walk?
they would at the ALC, and then they could walk.
Okay.
Actually,
Oh, Angie, go ahead.
I have one. I was just curious, for any students who might be scared to come to a big gathering, will they have another option, or they would just not walk?
They would not walk at this point.
Okay.
And we're just grateful that we're able to do one ceremony and get twice as many people this year. And that's the trade-off we have for having it outdoors, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much. Legislative update, Dr. Funk.
Go ahead, Brittany. All right, so this is interesting. You know, we're going to be talking our budget here in a little bit. It's hard to be running a school district right now when we have such disparity between sides at the legislative level. You can see that the governor looks at increasing funding K-12 by $745 million, the Senate by $152 million, and the House by $740 million. So we, of course, have to make our adjustments because of statute over the next couple months here. And they're supposed to be done here in about 6 weeks. We'll see if that happens. So under the House and the governor's plan, the general ed formula would increase by 1 and 2.5%. The Senate plan really never specified, but as you can see there, with 152 million, I think it'd be less than 0.5% a year is what we would be looking at for a potential increase. Both the governor's plan and the House also want to reduce the special education cross-subsidy. That's that about $4 million shortfall that we have annually as a district because of our excess special education costs. The governor's plan also has a provision to maintain compensatory funding at the current level for next year, which would be huge for the district. I am not aware, I know the Senate does not have that in their plan, and I have not been able to find that in the House's plan. So budget-wise is about as clear as mud as far as where they're going to land at this point. Go ahead, Brittany. So the Senate and the House, and this is at the kind of the omnibus, the combined bill level. The Senate bill has very few policy initiatives. The House has a whole bunch. One of local note is the one by Senator Dornick. I think that's important to know. Is right now you need a bachelor's degree to have a short-term substitute license. His bill, which passed the Senate, and it has not gone anywhere in the House yet, would require the district can determine whether an individual has met the professional requirements to have a license. It would provide school districts more flexibility to hire short-term substitutes without a bachelor's degree. And it was really driven by the Austin School District. As most school districts in Minnesota they're short on substitute teachers. And so this would allow that to happen. I don't think this is going to pass the House because the House is Democratic controlled, and Education Minnesota has come out hard against this bill, which is interesting because the teachers, if you were to ask them, are in support of having more substitutes in the classroom, but the union views it as watering down teaching standards. So, but that is an interesting one locally here.
What constitutes short-term, 20 days? 30?
15 days or less, yep.
Okay.
The House bill has a lot of different initiatives. Some are supported by Education Minnesota. One of particular note, because we're going to be talking about class size targets here in a little bit, is they want class sizes to be negotiated into the contract. So basically, we would not be able to adjust class size targets from year to year. It would be a contractual agreement with the bargaining unit, which would be very potentially costly for the school district, and it may hurt any future increases to salaries because you're now locked into a system where you're contractually bound to have so many students you're teaching. They also do not like some of the tiered, like right now, if you're a Tier 1 employee, you don't have to be part of a union. They'd like to see some changes to that so that Tier 1 people then can become part of the union. So those are some more controversial things as far as the district's perspective, but there's some good things in there. Emphasis on mental health instruction. And I was a civics teacher, so more requirements for civics for graduation. I think that's, I think, honestly, I don't think our kids have enough knowledge about the government processes currently. So that's another one that's in there. A couple others of note in here. Go ahead, Brittany. I don't know how much you're aware of the discussion going on right now about social studies standards in the state. There's the new academic for social standards for social studies are controversial. Some people believe that a small group of individuals are politicizing the social studies standards. So the Senate's response to that is to suspend the commissioner's academic review cycle and to slow that down for social studies. So I don't think that'll pass the House, so I think the review cycle will continue to move forward. But that is a concern within the within people throughout the state right now, particularly social studies. House File 292, I talked to Brad Lundell this afternoon. That is in the House omnibus bill, the authorizing districts to renew levies at the board level. He said it had a really good hearing at the Senate level, but it's not in the Senate's bill, but he thinks there's a strong likelihood that the Senate will add that to their bill. And this is the furthest it has gotten. I've never seen it get to an omnibus bill level. So we're about as positive as it comes. So basically what this would do is it would authorize school boards, if they have an expiring levy like we do, with a vote of the board to renew it in its current format. So stay tuned on that one. As you're aware, there has been, we had a meeting here about a year or so ago on the sex education bill, or sex education standards, I should say. There's a bill right now, House File 358, that's requiring the Department of Education to make a uniform approach to sex ed statewide. Not just standards, but here's how you're going to teach it. And this would take local control away from communities on this issue. It has not gotten to the floor yet. It went through one committee. It's now been assigned to a different committee. But that is a hot button topic at the Capitol. House File 1064, small impact on our district, but everything helps. It's one-time funding for the loss of enrollment dollars that school districts have been experiencing this year. It has passed the House. It has not gone anywhere in the Senate as of yet. And then we'll send these slides out to you, but there's a link on the pages and pages of other bills within the House and the Senate on that link there. Questions on any of that?
We've talked a little bit individually about the social studies curriculum here at Albertley. is that, will we have to wait to see what they do at the state level to do a curriculum review? Or you probably don't remember, wouldn't know the last time they did the review on what we teach at the middle school and high school level.
Mary Jo, you have any, last time social studies was reviewed?
2009, and there is a public, the committee is meeting Thursday at 8:30, and publicly you can watch it. It's open to the public. I can send you all the links if you want. So the social studies committee is meeting Wednesday morning, but it's open to the public because it is under a lot of scrutiny.
All right, thanks.
And there has been some activity on summer education funding. Do you know what the current status of any future things might be?
They have allowed the federal dollars to start to flow through, but we have seen nothing yet from the Senate side on summer funding. So that is still not moving forward from one of the houses. And that's unfortunate because that was one of the, we thought that this would be an opportunity to get some funding done early, and it just hasn't happened.
That really seems to affect planning for the summer too then. How in-depth do you go without knowing what funding is going to be available? Do we have to start just making some assumptions and have some availability?
Yeah, we are making assumptions to some degree. Like for right now, you know, we have been trying to identify how many students regular ed, how many students special ed, staffing, and you know, we will fund it through targeted services or our extended school year programming. But it would be nice to know what assistance we're going to be getting to do that. And then the other piece is if we get larger numbers, which we are expecting, we'll open up 2 buildings, 2 elementaries instead of 1, which will cost us more to operate, which the additional funding would be helpful.
Does that affect credit recovery at all, or is that part of it?
Credit recovery is part of it.
Anything else? Well, 4.3, we like to put it off, but Dr. Funk will let you lead that off.
So we, as Jennifer talked, I think last month, our last meeting, you know, we're looking at a potentially up to about $1 million in potential cuts for the district. So we have some assumptions that are driving our planning here as we're moving forward. One is we have a district fund balance policy of 12%. And until the board tells me different, that's what we will try to maintain as we move forward with our budget adjustments here. Some districts will spend that down. This district has been very conservative in that approach in my time here, and so we are going to try to balance our budget with that target in mind. Next, our schools enrollment, we are projecting it to be flat for 21-22. We don't see any increases. We don't see any significant decreases coming on. Now, having said that, one of the things we're going to be operating is we're going to continue with an online school, similar to what we've been doing this year, and try to keep those kids within the district. If the governor's plan does not come through, we will be seeing a reduction in about $500,000 in compensatory funding for the 21-22 school year. And again, the mechanisms that they use for this are just ancient. These are driven by our free and reduced applications. And if we are providing free lunches to everybody like we are all year this year, how can we determine compensatory dollars based upon free and reduced applications? But that's where we're at with it, and it's a statewide issue. So that's what we anticipate to be short next year. Now, I showed you the budget numbers from the House, from the governor, and the Senate, and we have no idea what they're going to come in at, so we are making an anticipation that we're going to see a slight increase in state aid of 1%. That's a pretty realistic number, we believe. And so that's how we're building our budget assumption. Our referendum will expire for taxes payable in 2022. If not renewed, that will lead to a further reduction in a year's time. We'll be coming back to you again and looking at a $2 million plus cut. The other thing that's important for the board to be aware of is we will be receiving significant federal aid over the next year and a half, which will help offset the loss of some of this revenue. However, one thing we need to be aware of is this is one-time aid. This is not ongoing dollars that will help us operationally moving forward. So those are things to take a look at. So two areas that we really have been examining are our core class sizes, grades K through 12, administrative overhead, and areas we have not looked at include electives. And then when I say electives, it's more at the high school level. There potentially could be some adjustments to electives at the middle school. We have not told Chris to look at that yet. But electives, no changes to activities, no changes to our counseling, and no changes to fine arts. So we are really going to be looking at adjusting some of our class sizes as our main driver of saving some costs here as we move forward. And that's what I'm going to get into on the next slide here. So we have good class sizes in Albert Lea. We've had good class sizes for a number of years. So we are, as we have to tighten our budget, and you know, I think one of the discussions for the board moving forward here is, all right, you know, we went out last fall to try to get more than a renewal because we knew we were going to be facing some shortfalls. If we get the authority to vote as a board to renew the levy, that's one thing. Or the next step is the board going to want to ask for even more money than the renewal, so that we're not in a situation where we're on the edge like we are this year. So that's just something to think about as we're moving forward. So those are kind of hard to see, but we'll start here. What I want you to take a look at is probably the fourth column in. This is elementary classes, okay? Fourth column in has our average class size for 2020-21. So this year, you can see our class sizes in that fourth column. Kindergarten's just over 20. First grade is just under 20. Second grade is 20. Third grade is just over 20. Fourth grade is 23. And fifth grade is 25. Okay? So now I want you to go over to the right-hand side, and where it says 2020-21, you'll see the blue box that says current cap. For planning purposes, those are our current caps. Okay? So they're currently at 22 in kindergarten, 22 in first grade, 24 in second grade, 26 in third grade, and 30 in fourth and fifth grade. So those are the caps that we have had probably since I've been here in the district. As far as what we think, if we get over that cap number, we look at adding a section or doing something different. So we are looking at adjusting those caps, and that's the last column there in blue, by 3 students at the K1 level And at the second grade level, we're looking at increasing it by 2 students per class. The third grade level, 2 students per class, and at the 4th and 5th grade level, 1 student per class. So those would be the new caps for planning purposes. If we did that, we know what we are currently sitting at, grades 1 through, or K through 4 this year, 1 through 5 next year. We don't know what our current kindergarten enrollment will look like. So the 4th column from the right will have our projected average class sizes for 21-22. 20 in first grade, 21 and a half in second grade, 24 in third grade. Fourth grade will be 27, and 5th grade will be 29.9. Now, by doing these adjustments, you can take a look at the number of sections. The number of sections column is the 3rd column in from the left-hand side. Currently, it's at 67. If you go a few columns to the right to the other number of sections, that will reduce to 60. So how do we sit in the rest of the world with targets? So go to the next slide. All right, so here's our projected targets versus what others in the Big Nine are currently looking at. And I can tell you there are other districts in the Big Nine who are having this discussion right now as well. You can see our kindergarten target would go up. So we would be tied with Mankato for the largest class sizes there. Kindergarten and first grade. Our second grade, we're higher than some, we're lower than some. Third grade, we'd be next to Mankato, or Rochester, excuse me. And then 4th and 5th grade, we would be tied with Rochester for 2 of the largest sections for class sizes. So go back 2 slides, Brittany. So again, the adjustments there are, you can take a look at, that's kind of where the class size averages will come in on that 4th column from the right there. You're too fast, Brittany. Correct. So go ahead, it's 1 slide. I can tell you the budget situations are as follows. Mankato's cutting $7 million from their budget. I think those caps are probably going to go up. Owatonna's looking at their 3rd year in a row of $2 million in cuts. Rochester's not going to cut, but they have about a $12 to $15 million shortfall that they're going to try to fill just through the feds. Faribault, Jennifer, where are they at? So, and we're, you know, as I said, we're looking at $1 million. So those are, the numbers up here are current with the exception of Albert Lee, which is projected.
And these projections, you think are going to provide for $1 million?
With everything we have, yes. I mean, not just those adjustments. We have some at the secondary level as well.
I guess my first reaction is I'm really uncomfortable with increasing class sizes to this extreme. And I'm wondering, why haven't electives and activities, things like that, been looked at?
Go back a slide. I will tell you that class sizes of 20 and 21 in 1st and 2nd grade, on average, for what we're projecting next year, are not extreme. This provides the board flexibility, because I also hear consistently, loud and clear in our community, we don't want to increase taxes. I also hear, I mean, this is really a balancing act. Um, you know, activities are important for our students. And this board has just committed to not having kids pay for activities. So, I mean, that's something you could take a look at too, but I think that this is a reasonable, prudent approach, particularly when we are moving forward into an unknown situation with the state funding and
Yeah.
coming out of a pandemic.
And by extreme, I mean third, fourth, and fifth grade look to be about 4 students larger. And to me, that's a big jump. That's quite a big percentage. I understand that the community doesn't want more taxes after the last referendum that they approved. However, my concern is that as a school, our main function, I believe, is to educate our students. And we have our mission, which encompasses a larger view. But when we haven't even considered electives and activities in comparison to class sizes, I'm asking that question. Is that something that we can look at, electives, activities, in order to keep our class sizes more in line with what they are now? Because I know that they are already, it's already difficult, I believe, to teach a large group of kids.
Yeah, so when you say electives, you're talking about college in the schools, those kind of classes, right? So it's not just, it wouldn't just be, in my opinion, one of the things that we do best is prepare our students for after, what happens after. And I think not just college in the schools, but even some of your fine arts and those kind of things. And so I believe that's part of the education process and the whole child. And so it is a balancing act, right? So we have to figure out what that is. So I just wanted to clarify what electives meant.
And they do encompass more than just college in the schools, correct?
And also, to the idea of honing down our course offerings so that you're down to a bare minimum of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and cutting out electives, fine arts, things like that. We have, in order to graduate from Elbury High School, students need a certain number of credits, and if you don't have electives, they're not going to reach that credit level by just taking non-elective courses. They're essential, not only because they offer students a more variety and of interest, but it also generates credits, and they need those credits. So it isn't that simple. And I know we as board elected to waive the activity fee. Well, I know the Education Foundation contributed, I don't know off the top of my head what the percentage of that activity fee, to make it up. But it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 1/2, I think. I'm just pulling that off the top of my head. So, and cutting activities, whenever you encounter financial concerns, you can talk about cutting certain things out of your budget, but a lot of those things, like activities, for example, aren't a great expense. Let's face it, the greatest expense in running an educational system is to pay teachers, and that's probably the fastest way to save money. I'm not in favor of cutting teachers, but that's where the money goes. most of it.
And to clarify my comment, I'm not talking about cutting out all electives, and I'm not talking about cutting out all activities. Obviously, we need to use common sense in what our students need to graduate. I'm saying, can we just look at these? If we haven't looked at these, are there some electives, some activities that could ease some of this push in the elementary classroom?
And again, these are caps, which it doesn't look like we're reaching at this point, so just planning purposes again, but obviously, as Neil said, that would mean reducing staff and moving students around to fill the caps in certain areas, certain schools, right?
We don't move students between schools.
Okay.
So they would stay within their current school.
Are you anticipating additional supports if these classes, like paras and things like that, have you budgeted
Yeah,
for that?
so one thing we haven't talked about at all is we do receive a lot of funding, Title I funding. We receive ADSIS funding from the state of Minnesota, which we have interventionists. And in some cases, we will, an example will be we'll have a grade level that's over cap in one of our buildings. All right, principal can come to me and say, okay, can I take my title teacher, instead of doing push-in or pull-out services, can we create a third section with the title teacher to reduce the cap space? Yes, we can, and we have done that. And that's why I think some of those numbers are lower when you're considering where the cap is. So we do have some flexibility there. We are very fortunate to have receive some of this additional funding that a lot of districts do not get, that don't have our free and reduced count.
Do we know what the union's going to ask for class sizes?
They're not. I mean, yeah, if the state does not, if the state does not come forward with that, they will come to us with concerns when there are class sizes that are too large, and we will look to see if we can make adjustments based upon that. But we're in the people business, and we want what's best for our students and what's best for our staff. If you were to take a look at research will tell you clear and simple, class size does not impact at the education of a child. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's what the research says. So, again, these are not draconian in any way, shape, or form. There are slight adjustments to our current cap. And again, we are in a tight space with where we're at as far as, taxes within our community and still providing a good quality education for our students. Now, if we have to come here again in a year's time and look at more cuts, yes, then you will see recommendations across the board. We're not there yet, and that's why I would make the statement that we are right-sizing the district based upon our enrollment by this approach. We are not doing massive cuts at this point in time like some other places are.
Can you tell us a little bit, you said there was some administrative, you would take a look at some administrative things. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so here's our targets. Typically you would think about 30 is where we are at our middle school. This year, we are actually lower than 30. You can see our average class sizes in the middle school. You can see our largest class size, 29, 29, 31, 32, and then you can see some of the smaller adjustments. Problem with scheduling both at the southwest, the secondary level of both buildings is the student day. You can have some sections of 20, and you'll see in the high school slides, maybe a section of 35 or 36. So I think the guidance we're going to provide, both Mark and Chris, is can we average class size by 3 in the core areas, and what does this do? How out of whack does this throw you as far as the larger classes? But we have some classes that are pretty small as far as average class sizes, and this is, at Southwest, this is probably about as small as I've seen it since I've been here. Typically, they're closer to the 30. And that's what we say on paper for 6 through 12 is 30 is the average class size. But what I'm going to have them take a look at is not the 30 number, but give me what your realistic, your smallest class shouldn't be 20. It should be maybe 24, 25 if possible. But again, it's much more difficult to do. It's dependent upon the schedule. Go to the next slide. And there's the high school with the core areas 8 through 12. You can see 33, 35 are the largest classes and what the averages are. And both of these, Chris, did yours include distance learning as well in these numbers?
Yeah, that's where we cut electives to make the class sizes smaller because of the pandemic, so that's why that's kind of off this year.
Okay.
So yeah, it does include the distance learning section and includes the teachers who taught those, who would normally teach electives or interventions. Yep.
Okay, so next, people often say, okay, what do we do for administrative adjustments? So we've eliminated the middle school assistant principal, and we eliminated the administrative dean at Albert Lea High School in the past couple of years. We also took 4 lead teacher positions out in special education. So in Albert Lea, you have 1 principal building with the exception of the high school, which has an associate principal. So there are probably, in a normal school year, 1,200 and some students in that building. We also have the principal on special assignment, and with federal funding, I'm going to recommend we maintain that position for 1 more year, because again, we don't know what our online is going to look like, and he also does a great job with the pathways position there. So that would be designated with some of those federal dollars. Now, if you were to compare us to Austin, I think they have 3 principals in their high school. Faribault has 3 principals in their high school. So we are thin at the principal level within our buildings compared to some others already from adjustments we've made. And again, I've talked about that. Some people say, well, what about at the district office? I think Austin has 2 principals on special assignment that work right out of their district office. I think Owatonna's teaching and learning department is probably twice our size, with the various curriculum folks that they have there. So we are pretty thin, and we've got great quality people working for us and been working for us for a long time that allow us to be thin. We do have some support positions that we think we can combine and reduce some potential overhead there as we move forward. So if I were to say, if we have a future adjustment coming, the thing I hear most is, okay, the principal on special assignment who's doing online learning, that position, not the individual, but the position. And again, I think we can cover that through the federal dollars for this next year, but that'd be something we would take a look at moving forward. So I think, is that it, Brittany? I think that's the last slide on that. So questions, comments on where we're at?
This, again, these are just some recommendations for us to consider. Nothing, obviously, tonight we don't have action items, but that would cut back that $1 million if we made some of these adjustments potentially at this point.
The vast majority of it, yes. We also have our insurance, health insurance is coming in. I think those numbers are actually coming in pretty good. We'll have a meeting on that with the insurance committee here in a couple weeks. That's gonna save us some money from having to cut more, because the numbers are less than what we anticipated as far as an increase we're looking at. So that's a positive.
You know,
What if the governor and/or the House gets their wish?
Yeah, then we can revisit part of this. Our problem is we have to make decisions in the next few weeks here that we have to make before they're done as a legislature. But absolutely, we can revisit this. I mean, if it comes in at 2 and 2, yeah, I mean that's a much better situation. It has, but the concern that I have is, I mean, there is somebody who did make put a bill forward for 2 and 2, but it sounds like their budget target is 1 and 2.5. That's concerning to me. The other thing that the board, we take your guidance as far as negotiations. As far as what we're going to look at for increases within negotiations, we have some control over that budget as well. But the cost of living is going up for folks too, so it's a tough time right now. And what we're trying to do is provide you our best recommendation at this point, without cutting major programs within the district. For our students, with them not knowing what's coming forward from the state at this point in time.
And I am concerned with elementary grades, just knowing that our test scores have been below state average, and just wondering how this increase of class sizes will affect the students. The 5th grade looked like it was projected to be increased by almost 18% in the classroom, and just trying to envision what that would
go back to that chart. Keep on going, right there. Okay, so you're saying it's going up from 18%.
From 25.4 to 29.9.
Okay, they're going to go up from 23.9 to 29.9, actually, those group of kids. So it'll be more than that, 18%.
Well, fifth grade is 25.
Right. I'm looking at this year's 4th grade going into 5th
So
grade.
more than what they're used to now in 4th grade.
Correct. But the targets in 5th grade right now are 30, okay? And we're recommending a target increase of 31. The other thing that we don't discuss on at least this side when we're talking students is there are students, and Kathy, I don't know if you have this number with you, but who are self-contained, who are, they may be 28 or 29 in the classroom, but 3 of them may be in a different room all day long. And that doesn't take that into account when we're talking the targets here. What's that? 50 elementary self-contained. 50 total.
And there are other special ed students in the classroom as well during the day.
Correct.
Yeah.
But again, we hear loud and clear, no more taxes in our community. Okay, so we have to do something as a school district. And as a board, I will take the direction from you as far as if you want to look at activities to be cut or credit opportunities for electives. But I think that's a conversation down the road when we get into major cutting mode. I think this is, as I stated before, is right-sizing our district at this point.
I'll put more thought into it, but I just wanted to say my reaction initially is that this seems reasonable, and I appreciate keeping the activities, so.
I mean, another area that, again, we did not take a look at really is counselors. You know, this board added 5 counselors a few years ago, 4 in the elementary, 1 at the high school. And, you know, again, going back to the mission statement, you know, the social and emotional growth of the child. But when you're talking about class sizes, okay, well, there's something that, you know, they don't technically impact class sizes, but again, I think that's a future discussion point if we get there, if we have to go there, and I hope we don't.
Well, thank you very much for the reports, and seeing no other discussion, just a reminder that April 19th at 5 p.m. is our next meeting. It's our business meeting here, 5 p.m. in our boardroom. Thank you for attending tonight.